Good morning, everybody. My name's Richard Keeves, and it's a real pleasure to be hosting with Gareth this webinar. This is the first of the webinars that we've run in this new era of doing business, there's a lot of changes going on in the world, and one of the most important changes is understanding the importance now of websites and making sure that they work really well. I'd like to introduce my colleague as well, Gareth Lane. Gareth is going to be mainly presenting this session. Gareth, say hello to everyone.
Hello, everyone. Gareth Voice, dialing in. Nice to see some friendly faces in the attendee list. Hello to everyone that I know personally.
Point though, this is business information you can use, expert advice, and stuff that you can actually use straight after the webinar. You'll be able to hopefully do things that you might not have been able to do before. This is being recorded and will be available later. It'll probably be up on our YouTube channel in about 48 hours or less. And these webinars are also on the Concise website in the blog area. We get them transcribed so that you can not only see the video, you can also be able to go through and understand anything that you might have missed. We're happy to take questions as we go along, but we'll also have a question session at the end. This session today is on Google Analytics, and there are three important things that we think are really, really key with Google Analytics. The first one is to make sure that you know where to find the data that is going to be useful. Second is that you understand how to analyze the data and understand what the numbers actually are telling you. And then the most important thing after that is then to say, okay, as a result of this information, what do I now do? What can I change? And what should I be changing first? What are the priorities for action? So with that, I'm now going to hand the talking stick over to Gareth, and he's going to run through some examples with Google Analytics. Go ahead, Gareth.
Thank you kindly. Okay, so just for everyone's benefit, before we get started, Google Analytics is a minefield of data. If you don't like maths and you don't like percentages, then I suggest go make yourself a cup of coffee and do something else. If you do, however, enjoy numbers and you enjoy looking at spreadsheets, then I think you'll find Google Analytics very interesting. One of the things that I find a lot of people go wrong is they don't know where to start in Google Analytics, and Google themselves are not particularly interested in you learning about where to look properly, because Google makes money out of ad revenue. And so if they can make sure that you don't really know exactly what you're doing, then you'll spend more money. So just keep that in mind, that Google is a capitalist American company, and this particular piece of software, while it's free for you to use, is really for Google so that they can harness all the information about the internet. So just keep that in mind. When you have Google Analytics, assuming you have Google Analytics on your website, if you don't, it's very easy to set up. However, there are some more advanced things that you can do in Google Analytics once you've got the information. If anyone doesn't have Google Analytics, you're welcome to send me an email and we'll get some access or get an account set up for you. I always like to start in Google Analytics on this screen called Acquisition, All Traffic, and then Channels. So when you log in, you'll get a whole heap of menus, but you should really start here, okay? Because this gives you a really good overview of all of the traffic that your website is getting, broken down by different areas of where the traffic has come from, whether it's come from general Google, social media, email, referral to all sorts of different things. And it'll present you a number of columns, which I've got open on the screen. So I assume that this is coming through okay.
Yep, that's great.
Okay, and so once you've...
It is for me, hopefully for everyone else as well.
Okay, wonderful. So once you've logged in and you have got to Acquisition, All Traffic, Channels, the most important thing to do next is to set a date range. And the date range is managed in the top right-hand side, up here in the top right-hand side. And I always try and look at either a month or 3 months. If you look at anything smaller than that, then you'll find that the data can get very skewed, as is what's happening in this example, where there was some peak advertising that was done on this website, and they've got some big spikes in their traffic on certain days. So if you then looked at the analytics in a shorter time frame than a month, then you'll find that the data will be really misleading. So the other thing that's really important to do is to set a comparison so you know what you're comparing the data to. So in the date range box up in the top right hand side, there's a little drop down that says compare. Just tick that box and then it'll bring, in this example, I've got the last 30 days versus the 30 days before. And I chose this one in particular because it has been affected by COVID-19, their business, and we want to know why. Okay. The next thing that you want to make sure you look at is have a section on conversions, which is on the right hand side. It does need to be set up. So if you have data that is blank, then you do need to set it up. And the idea of goals is to highlight on your website what you want people to do. So if you have an e-commerce business, then the goal would be to get checkouts or sales or something like that. If you have a business that is doing accommodation, which is this particular example, then you obviously want a booking. If you have a business that you rely on email inquiries, then your goal would be email inquiries. So you can set lots of different goals, but it's really important to look at your website and decide what you want the user to do, and that will also help your Google Analytics data. So in this particular example here, we've got the data broken down by the type of traffic that comes through, and then reading across the page, we have acquisition. So acquisition is the type of people that are coming into the website. So it's the number of users, how many of them were new users, how many times they came back to the website, and then broken down per traffic source, and then broken down again per time period. Moving across, you then have what's called behavior. Behavior gives you a really good idea of how people are behaving on your website, as the name suggests. There's a lot of misunderstanding around what a bounce rate is. A bounce rate is when someone lands on your web page or a page on your website and then leaves without doing anything else, right? So basically they didn't click anything. Now you have to be very careful with that, because if you only have a one-page website, then everyone's going to bounce because they can't do anything else. If you have a 10-page website and everyone lands on one particular page and then leaves from that page and doesn't go to another page, then again, you'll have a high bounce. So if you're a business that people Google your business name to find the phone number, then people are very likely to just click one page, which would be the contact page, and then they would look at that and then leave, which would give you a high bounce. So just keep that in mind, that look at it in isolation. Personally, I prefer to look at the next two in conjunction with each other. So pages per session is how many actions that person took on that web page, and then the session duration is how long they spent on the site in total. So just think about it. If you had a physical showroom and someone came and looked at 3.6 areas of the showroom, and they spent an average of 2 minutes wandering around that showroom, yeah, you would say, well, is that good or bad? Because I've got the comparison on, this has dropped substantially in the last month, and being in accommodation because of COVID-19, that's no surprise. You know, they're getting more traffic, but they're spending less time on the site. Okay, so they're probably looking to sort of reset bookings or get discounts or refunds, those sorts of things. So you just have to kind of think about it in isolation. You then have to then look at the goals and say, well, what do we intend to get the customer to do? So in this particular example, the traffic went up only 1.7%. So the number of users only went up 1.75%. However, the number of conversions, the number of bookings, went up 125%. Now, in this example, that's kind of obvious because it's in accommodation and it's COVID-19 related, and people are starting to book holidays again. So there's a good reason for the data, and that's really the main thing to think about. Is ask yourself a question and just look at the number and say, does that seem right? And then relate it back to what's happening in the business world, your business, and so on. Okay, moving on to the next one. That's kind of like where you want to start. Okay, I haven't confused you with all of that, then we'll keep going. So this particular example now that I have on the screen is the same screen, so it's still acquisition, all traffic, but this particular site has a lot more different types of traffic. So down on the left here, we have organic search. So this is people who have Googled the business, haven't come from a paid ad. Some would say it's SEO. It's not really SEO, but it is a part of it, okay? Direct traffic means that people have typed in the business name into the URL. So www.businessname.com, that's what direct traffic means. Paid search is if you're paying ads, so for, say, Google ads or other paid ads, that will appear in paid search. Other is a catch-all for anything else. Social is for social media. Social media usually includes any paid social media as well, but you can break it down. Referral traffic is from third parties. So let's just pretend you had a listing on another website or a directory or something like that, and the website traffic came from that source. That's what that would be. Display is another form of paid advertising, and then just under here, which you can't quite see, is email. So if you're sending out email promotions, then it would tag that traffic there. So you then want to look at all the information in isolation and say, well, how can I improve each? So I've highlighted here the organic search traffic has increased 28.9% over the last 30 days compared to the 30 days before. And on the face of that, we would say, oh, that's good. Our traffic's gone up. However, if we then scroll across to our conversions on the right-hand side, we'll note that the conversion rate went down 18% or nearly 20%. So what that means is you had more people coming in the front door, but less people wanting to buy your product. So you would look at what did I do on the website in the last month that may have disencouraged people to buy like they did the month before. Again, this particular example I chose because it's COVID-19 related. So you've got people who are in the market browsing, but they're not necessarily buying. So you have to look at those numbers together. And so like if you had, say, a number where this one here, paid search, has increased 11%, and then the conversions has also increased very similar, 10.35%, then you would say you're getting the same type of users, they're still qualified, they're still buying in the same sort of ratio. So it's important to look at those numbers together rather than on their own. Okay. Next one along. This is a further illustration of the same point. This one is to do with e-commerce, and I have extended the search, so the date range to 3 months. So if you're going to sort of be really analytical with improving the website and making major changes to the website, then you want to look at a larger date range. So this particular example, they were looking at their paid search and their costs of paid ads. So
Gareth, can I just interrupt and say it's important for people to realize this is actually a different business now.
Yes, sorry. All of these are individual examples.
This is a different example, guys. This is why the numbers are a lot different.
Thanks. Yeah, so with this paid search here, so you would look at that top number and say, okay, well, we've had a 46% increase in traffic and from paid search, and you would look at that in theory and say, well done, you know, that's a good result. However, if we scroll then across to the e-commerce section, which I've highlighted here, the number of transactions has also increased 42%, which is almost the same number. They're very similar numbers, okay? So if you're doing paid search, then the people that were managing that paid search could sort of, you know, give themselves a good little pat on the back for doing a good job of increasing the traffic, but they haven't really done anything to improve the quality of the traffic and reduce the spend because they've just added more to the pile. So they've just made the front door bigger rather than optimize the people coming in. So if you're doing paid traffic, so that counts for social media or paid ads or anything like that, then the name of the game is to improve the conversion rate over time. And so the percentage increase in transactions should be higher than the percentage increase in traffic, because that would suggest that there are more better qualified people coming into the business over time. Does that make sense?
Yeah, just to add to that, it's about conversion rate optimization, where part of the process of that is making small tweaks to improve things, and over time, a lot of small tweaks add up. And so it's not just good enough to pay money to get a lot more people coming into the website. What's important is to make sure that you get more people converting more times on the way through the website. And then you start paying more money, and the whole system works very well. If you just spend money attracting people to the website, but your conversion rates are not very good, then you can waste a lot of money and waste a lot of opportunity.
Absolutely. Okay, this is another illustration of a very similar point about how you sort of, this would be what you would want to happen, where we've compared year on year. So this is the same business, and the previous screen was 3 months versus the 3 months before. So it was January to March versus October to December. And this example, I've used the same January to March, but I've compared it to the year before. And we can now see that there was a 132% increase in traffic from paid search. However, there was a 240% increase in number of transactions, because we had a 65% improvement in the e-commerce conversion rate. So as you were saying, it's very important that you focus on improving the conversion rate, because that will multiply the effect of more traffic into more transactions. And in this particular example, that added something like $300,000 of additional revenue. So very important to be conscious, be continually focusing on improving conversion rate. And this particular website, I believe, did a bit of a refresh and a revamp of their website, and would no doubt have some effect on that. But if you're paying third parties to do this sort of work on your behalf, or you're doing it yourself and you're spending money on paid ads or email marketing or social media or anything like that, then you want to make sure that the percentage increase in conversion rates is higher than the percentage increase in traffic. Otherwise, you're effectively going backwards. Okay. Anyone has a question as we go, please feel free to put it in the chat. I'll try and address them as we go if needed. The next section that I find really useful in Google Analytics is what we call landing pages. And how you get to that is you go on the left-hand side in behavior, site content, and then landing pages. Now, common misunderstanding from a lot of clients I find is that they put a lot of effort into their website's homepage, and they have really good pictures and really good messaging and so on, but they don't realize that the majority of the website traffic doesn't go to the homepage first. So this part of analytics tells you where they do go. So what I've highlighted here is the percentage of people that go to the homepage. So when you look at your landing pages and you see a / like I have on the screen here, that is the homepage. And the number that I've highlighted in red here is the percentage of the traffic that went to the homepage first. So only 21% of the website's overall traffic went to the homepage. So that means 79% of other people went somewhere else, and it lists them in order. Okay, now I've had to sort of hide out these pages for confidentiality reasons. However, if you look at it in your Google Analytics, then you'll see the exact page name and the URL of what page they landed on your website. And it's in order of like percentage of people that went. So page 2 here on their list, they had 6.09% of their traffic went to that page first. And we're talking, 8,500 people who did that in 3 months. So it's not to be sneezed at. If we then scroll across this data, we will be alarmed at the terrible conversion rate from those people versus the people that hit the homepage who converted at 13.68% and generated $600,000 worth of sales. Whereas the people that hit the second most visited page only converted at 0.18%, so very, very, very low, and only made up $2,000 worth of sales. So my advice to this, if I was looking at this, how to improve this page, would be to look at this page and think, well, what have I missed on that page that I should be convincing my prospective customers to stay on my web page? And I can look at the bounce rate, and it shows that most of the people that have landed on that page have then left. Most of the people that landed only looked at one page, and then they only spent just on a minute on that page, whereas the average for the home page is 5.5 minutes. So I would go and look at that page on the website and work out how I can make it better. I might put some links on there, some more pictures, some videos, some testimonials, those sorts of things.
Just to add to that, that 5.5 minutes is the session duration. What that means is of when they went to the home page and then went to other pages in the site, then they overall average stayed 5.5 minutes on that website, as opposed to the one in the second row where they only spent 1 minute. And so this is about engaging the people who come to the site to make sure that they don't only see things on the website, but they start interacting, they learn, they're engaged. And when people are engaged, they convert better. If they're not engaged or not, they're just looking at the website, but they're thinking, okay, well, this is not giving me what I want, I better go somewhere else, then you've pretty well lost them. And that's what's happening in the second row there. They're sticking around for a little while, not doing very much, and then leaving quickly.
Absolutely. So very important to look at landing pages. The other one that's really useful to look at is the location. So this is another website again. And how you get to this page is you go to audience, geo, and then location. And then this will break it down not only by country, but you can also then break it down again by state. If I say click Australia or the US, and all the data is broken down in the same columns, but per country. So if I then look at this data in comparison, we can see that 8% of our traffic comes from the United States. However, the United States traffic only spends 15 seconds on the page, and they don't convert, and one or two people did check out. So this then would present an opportunity to this business to say, well, we're getting people from the US, it's not a massive number, but it's a reasonable number. That's 800 or 700 odd people, individual people over a 1 month period through COVID-19 who have said, I'm happy to go and look at an Australian webpage. However, they've landed and gone, oh, they don't sell to the US, or it's not obvious that they sell to the US, so I'm going to leave. So that would be a really good opportunity, particularly because of the low Aussie dollar versus the US dollar at the moment, for this business to maybe offer international shipping or an option for the US market to pay for items in US dollars. So it also dramatically reduces the stats averages. So there are ways of if this business said, well, we only work in Australia, we don't want to do anything outside Australia, then there are ways in Google Analytics to exclude these countries or anything other than Australia from all of the analytics, so that you're not seeing skewed information. So very important to sort of look at your analytics in isolation to your business and have a really good understanding of what your business's target customer is, where they're located, and there's lots of other options in Google Analytics. And the final one that I want to show you is the device. Okay, this is probably the most important one of all, and there's somewhat of an argument to suggest that this should be obvious now, but I keep getting proven wrong. So you get to this one by going under audience, mobile, and then overview. And then what this does is, again, breaks all of the same information down by what device they came in on. And I constantly find myself sitting in meetings with clients where they're talking through their website and what they want to do to improve it on a desktop. And they still seem to not realize that the Google Analytics will give them the answer as to what device their customers are actually using. So in this particular example, 72% of this website's traffic, so you're talking 80,000 users in a 3-month period, are using a mobile. So there should be absolutely no reason at all that we should be focusing on the desktop first. We should be making all changes to the mobile and then looking at the desktop second, because even though the desktop does have traffic, it's 26%, the majority is still on a mobile. And then if we then look at their conversion rates, we can see a huge difference between conversion rates on desktop versus conversion rates on mobile. So it's nearly 4 times. So just imagine if we could get the mobile device to convert as good as the desktop device, then that would generate 4 times the additional revenue, which would add something like $3 million of revenue in a 3-month period to this business. So this just goes to show you the power of really looking at Google Analytics and focusing on, or knowing where to look, and then using the data to help you make better decisions about how to improve your website and where you should focus your time and effort. And that's me done. Any questions?
Thanks, Gareth. Yeah, there is a question in the chat. I'll let you, from Rebecca. Can you see that?
Okay, we were trying to figure out if our increase in social media spend was justified by increased conversions. We've had to base the belief it is on Facebook's own ad manager data, because I've been told by our SEO company that there's no way to track if a customer initially came through from a social channel but did not immediately buy, then later came back to purchase. That purchase now gets attributed as a direct link rather than social, I'm assuming. Okay, that's a really good question, and it's actually quite a technical question to answer. So what Rebecca is asking, it's called last click attribution, and the idea being, if I could set up an example for you. So let's just pretend I Googled a business and I clicked on an ad, and then I went to the web page, and then I didn't do anything, and then went to my social media, on my mobile, because it's all connected, right? Then I saw an ad or a remarketing ad, or I even went to that business's social page, and then I clicked on that ad from the Facebook page ad. The traffic and the conversion would be attributed to the social media ad, even though my first interaction with the business came from a ad that I saw in Google. Where it's really important to look at from an analysis point of view is comparing data. So what you can't do is compare data when you change the attribution method, because you can actually change that last click format in the ad manager. Sorry, this is quite technical, this question. However, if you change it and then look at the data, then you're not really going to be able to compare it. So as long as everything is kept the same, then the job of improving your social media spend would be looking at your comparison data month on month without changing anything about the way that the attribution is done. So if you went into your Google Analytics and you set the date ranges, and then you looked at the acquisition channel and then the traffic that came from social media, then you should be able to make a decision on whether or not the spend generated any additional return. And a prime example of wastage in social media comes on mobile devices from ads that appear within apps. So if you're on a mobile device, for example, and you go to, say, the Weather Zone, which is the free weather app, right at the bottom of that app, just basically on top of the back button or the homepage button of your mobile device, you'll find a very sneaky little set of ads that come through that are placed very, 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 very on top of the button that you would want to push. And then so what happens is you, as the user, accidentally click on that ad instead of the homepage. You hit the web, you've triggered the ad, the advertiser's paid, and then you end up then going back. And how you find that in your Google Analytics is when you go to your channels. Let me see if I've got an example here on the screen. When you go to your channel data you will see from social media. So if I just zoom in on this one, if you look at your social media data on this little line here, and you see that your time on page is under 10 seconds, I can pretty much guarantee it's because the majority of the traffic has come from people that accidentally clicked that ad. It's how Facebook and Google make billions of dollars from people that don't know what they're doing. And so I hope that is helpful. I hope that answered the question.
Okay, are there any more questions for Gareth? All righty. In the absence of that, Gareth, you want to wrap up?
Sure. Thanks everyone for your time. Was some last minute questions coming in?
Oh no, I was just going to say that just one thing before we do is that we are running the next webinar on May 28, and this is about top tips for online stores. This is very, very important, obviously, in this environment where people are looking to sell more online, and May 28th, 2 weeks from now, is for that one. Hang on.
Okay. If anyone needs any assistance with Google Analytics, or not sure if they have an account, if you're already a client of Concise and you're not sure if you have access or something like that, then please get in contact with us. No problem at all. Yeah,
one thing that Gareth and I talked about prior to this is that if you have attended the session today and you would like to know more about your analytics, Gareth's happy to do, and he'll probably tell you more about this, but he hasn't yet, but he's happy to do a free 30-minute one-on-one session with you to go through your own Google Analytics and to help draw out any of the information that may be hiding in your analytics data. So that's a free 30-minute session that is, we normally charge for that, so this is a benefit. But in terms of, like because you've attended this webinar, happy to extend that to you.
And I won't say no. No, I won't say no to a bottle of wine either. My arm can be twisted.
Oh, there you go. Actually, there's another question come in, Gareth, about landing pages, just before we wrap.
Okay, landing pages. Rather than looking at which pages to improve, can you influence where customers land, i.e. direct more traffic to the homepage if that's the most attractive, has the most info? Okay, good question. You have to analyze where the traffic actually came from in the first instance. So there's a very handy little button, which I didn't go through today because it's more of an advanced session, but in Google Analytics, there's a button called secondary dimension. And if you're on the landing pages screen in Google Analytics, you can then add in another layer of data, which shows you what channel they use to get to that landing page. So for example, you might find that landing page, the majority of the traffic hit that landing page from an email campaign. So that would be an obvious way of you changing the landing page from an email campaign. You might find that that traffic, the landing page was from organic search, which is more difficult to control because the search bot has put that has put that landing page in its index and made it more important and more relevant. So to answer that question properly, you have to look at the actual source of that traffic in the first instance. You can also, on those landing pages, like if you had a landing page that was perhaps a blog post as your second most landed page, then at the top of that page, you could put a few links and say, you might be interested in this, or click here to browse our categories. Like a lot of people say have their home pages with all the menus and all the options and so on, but then all their sort of blog posts and content pages and other things don't have any links outside of the menu. So you could put some links at the top of the page or through the content, which direct you to other sites.
Yeah, just on that score, Google normally decides where people come in by which pages it shows in its index. That's for organic. But for other things other than organic, yes, you can control the links that you put out there. Great, guys. Hope you've enjoyed that webinar session. As I say, there's another one in 2 weeks' time for about online stores. Thank you very much, Gareth. I've got a lot of comments coming in saying that was great information, and I definitely concur. So that was well done. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for taking part in this session. Thank you.
Thank
We're going to wrap now. Bye now.